Awesome. What's going on, guys? Emerald Coast, surrounding areas, everyone else who may be watching and listening. I am very, very blessed to be here in front of you all. And Jairek, thank you so much for your time today. I was just briefly letting you know I want this to be kind of like a interpersonal, me and you connecting. My goal is to just grow a network of very awesome, impactful leaders. And just from me meeting you for less than 10 minutes, I was able to see just how much of a positive influence that you have on everyone, whether it be organizations or individuals. So thanks for spending some time with me.
You're welcome. You're welcome. I'm excited to chat.
Today, usually, man, I just kind of wanted to a little bit just learn a little bit about you. So you know what I do. I mentioned and introduced the podcast and the radio personality that I've been able to be a part of. I can't in any way, form take credit for it because it's the message that deserves the spotlight rather than the individual. And I know that you can resonate with that because I've seen a lot of the different things that you've done. I just want to let you know, man, that I have been really amazed by all the things I've seen just since we connected, like just on Instagram and just by your staff and the communications. Everything is so top notch. And you should just you should know that how proud like you should be of everything you built.
Totally. Totally. We are proud of it.
I love that, man. Well, today I kind of wanted to go over my past and my connection with you. So obviously, if everyone's seeing this, they're also seeing your last name, Robbins. Tony Robbins was a very huge influence in my life about 5 to 6 years ago, very heavily in one of the most trying times in my entire period of any type of timeline as an adult, as an individual. And I really got to know the coaching aspect and got to know the personal development or the personal improvement that comes with all of this. If you don't mind, I want to make this about you because I've actually seen to where we have so many separate identities from the people that we've been around and been influenced by. But I'm interested to get to know you, man. Will you tell us a little bit more about you and your story and just what's brought you to where you are today?
Sure. I could tell it a million different ways. Who generally watches this so we can tell it to them in a way that would be most useful to them?
Absolutely. So this is about making an impact without having a large amount of influence. So a lot of times when people see influencers or people of high net worth or people of high influence, they get discouraged because they feel if they don't have that same platform, that they can't make an impact. And every bit of the brand that I'm building is to show quite the opposite.
Sure. So I would start by saying I just watched an awesome Instagram video of a lady who's a cafeteria worker at a local school. And so she goes to lunch hour and she spends all her time serving all the lunches. She then packs up her car, which is like an old, rusting, kind of beat up car, and she drives around San Diego looking for homeless people that she serves home cooked meals to every single day. And she knows them all. She's friends with them. She pulls up. She's like, "Hey, Gladys, how you doing, girl? Hey, Rodney, come on over. Hey, Jim, over here. Come here, Jim." Like she calls them all in and she pulls up and she literally pulls like her tray of food she cooked from home out of the back of the car and puts it on the back trunk. And as they walk up, she takes a plate and just like the cafeteria, scoops their food, gets their silverware and hands it to them. And she feeds dozens of people every single day.
That's amazing.
And so I would pause and ask, does she have local influence?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, how many followers does she have on Instagram? And how many downloads does her YouTube channel have? And how many Twitter tweets does she have? As far as I can tell, none.
Right.
But she has a shit ton of local, and that's a technical term, shit ton of local influence.
Good.
It is. Now, how did she get the influence? Did she spend her time mastering the thing and like dabbing? No, she didn't know how to do any of that. Her local influence is based on heart and caring. And so she cares about a group of people that are locally within her reach of influence, her area of impact. You know how they do, like, if a comet were to hit Earth, then they draw a radius called the disaster zone. Well, if this lady lives in a city, you could draw the same radius called her impact zone. This is the zone of impact for this woman, and this is how far her impact reaches. The challenge is, and the opportunity is, most people don't realize that all she was concerned with is her impact radius around San Diego. If I were to draw you a picture of what this looks like, let me grab a sheet real quick. If I were to draw you a picture of her impact radius, wrong deck. One sec. There we go. Her impact radius might look something like, let me grab this, throw that up there. There we go. Cancel. So hopefully, is that up on the screen?
Yes, it is.
Cool. So here's this lady. We're going to make her the red circle. We'll fix that. She's right here. And then this is her impact radius. This is how much impact she has within the community. And so I'd stop and ask and say, if this is you who's watching, then my question is, how big is your impact radius? How big is the impact you want to make around you? Now, for some people, that's like, well, my impact radius is my family. That's as big as my impact is. I can impact the lives of my family members. That is my impact radius. For other people, like this lady, it was, a certain region of her city. That is this lady's impact radius. She can impact her city much more than just her family. There's a radius around her of her entire city that she can go make an impact in. For other people, there's some people who their impact radius is the entire state they live in. They have a deep, profound, lasting impact on the whole state. For other people, they have an impact on their country. And then finally, for the last people, some people have an impact on the world. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
And so I would look at that, and let me redraw this in a different shape just so everyone can see it. But if we were to take your impact, you might want to draw it like this, where you say, okay, I could have this level of impact. I could have this level of impact. I could have this level of impact. Or by God, I could have this level of impact.
Right.
Now, the question is, number one, what do you desire as far as the level of the impact you have? What do you desire? Number two, are you willing to put in the work? Because lots of people say, hey, I want to impact the whole world. And you go, okay, are you willing to put in the effort necessary and take on the responsibility to impact the world? And they go, well, wait a second. I just want the high fives, accolades, and money. I don't want the work. You go, well, shit, if you don't want the work, you're not going to get the impact.
That's right.
I'll say it another way. If you're not in love with the process, you're not going to get the result. Think of cause and effect. If you're not willing, willing is a verb. It's an action word. Willing means, oops, don't want a timer. There you go. Willing means, are you going to use your willpower to do the work to make the impact you desire? Think cause and effect. Are you willing, using your willpower, will you will yourself to put the cause into motion to create the effect you're dreaming of? If you're willing to do the amount of work necessary to impact the world, you can impact the world. If you're only willing to do the work to impact your state or your city, there's probably another circle right here, which is, if we get in here, this is your family. Shit, some people aren't even willing to do the work to impact their own self.
Right.
Stop there for a second. How many people do you know who tell themselves a story of, you know what? Someday I'm going to get healthy. Someday I'm going to finally go start the business of my dreams. Someday I'm going to finally do what I want to do. And they're like, I dream of impacting the whole world, but my God, I haven't even figured out how to kick my own ass into motion to get myself to go do all the things that I dream of doing. Well, shit, it's going to be real hard to impact the world if you can't even get yourself. The other word you can use for here is you can say the result is the impact, the cause is influence. Do you have the influence over yourself? Have you been able to influence your family to make healthier, happier, stronger, and more fulfilled choices? Can you influence people in your city to choose to have a better life? Can you influence people in your state and around the world? Another word for state might be country. Your whole nation, your country, your state, the whole tribe. Now, this lady, going back to the story, this lady was able to influence her entire city. Her entire city. She could influence the city. How did she influence the city? By showing up and taking care of them. I'll give you another thought. Most people want to be the king or queen of their own kingdom, their own queendom. They want to rule over the group that are their followers, right? I want to create influence. I want millions of followers. Here's what they don't take into account. A king or a queen who rules over a kingdom or a queendom, if they're unconscious, meaning they're unconscious of themselves. Oh, there I am. Sorry, I had the wrong thing up. If they're unconscious of themselves, the way they think is, you live in my kingdom, so you do what I want you to do. At some point, they realize you live in my kingdom, so it's my job to serve you.
Great perspective. Absolutely. So when they
And so how many people do you want to serve all day? If you're not willing to be of service to millions of people all day, that when they need your help, you step up and serve them, then you're probably not going to get millions of followers. You're most likely not going to build a giant influence or have a big impact. But if you're willing to serve, the more people you're willing to serve, the larger your influence and impact gets. Most people want the results or what they think the results are, but they don't want the work. Kevin Hart says it, the comedian. He says, everybody wants to be famous, but no one wants to do the work. Everyone wants a bunch of followers, but no one wants to serve them. The reason this lady has influence is because she serves the community. There's another guy, I think it's called Vic Blends on Instagram. He's a young kid who grew up in a rough place. He has an immense amount of influence. Why? Because he has a skill set, a trade called being a barber. And one day he said, I'm tired of struggling with where I'm at. So he picked up his gear, he walked outside, and he looked for someone and said, hey, can I give you a free haircut? Someone was like, what do you want? He's like, nothing. I'm a barber. I just want to give you a free haircut. He goes, okay. Someone sits down and he just starts tightening up their hair. And as he's doing, he says, is it okay if I ask you a couple questions? They go, yeah. And then he starts chatting with them about life. He happens to be a motivational speaker, a little bit of a coach, it seems. And this dude helps people have better lives by just serving the community through giving free haircuts. Both of these people have massive impact.
I love that. That's actually the mantra, and like the whole reason why I kind of thought like impact was a prerequisite for influence, because so many people want to skip to like the results and they want to skip to what looks like it's a lot of fame and fortune and all these things, but they're missing the responsibility to take on the emotional bandwidth to take other people's problems in consideration.
Yeah,
I love that. Well, was there a time ever to where like you had to learn that hard-earned lesson of like, hey, if I'm going to do this the right way, like you said, Vic picked up his, clips and went outside and he went and seen the community. Was there a time in your life where you're like, you know what, I'm going to stop looking for shortcuts and I'm just going to pick up my traits and characteristics and go do this for the world? What did that look like?
Sure. I moved to Africa and lived in a rural farming village teaching organic farming when I was 20.
Amazing.
Yeah. I taught English in schools in Thailand when I was, 19, 20 years old. I volunteered. I got a Congressional Award Gold Medal, which happened to do with personal development, professional development, living in a place unlike your own. But the most important part was a few thousand hours of service to the community. And so I did all of that when I was young. And that was stuff that was inspired through the works of my family. My mom was someone that she never had a whole lot financially, but she would always take whatever she had, even if it was a credit card, and like pay off a few $100s and then use it to go buy gift cards to be able to hand out to homeless people who needed food.
Wow.
So she was always giving, regardless if she had it or not. My dad, I mean, he got kicked out of the house at 19, was living in his car. Him, my mom, and a bunch of friends were going to have a Friendsgiving because they didn't have houses to go to or that they wanted to go to. So they all got together around Thanksgiving and he just didn't show up. And they were like, that's weird. We know he didn't go home because he was fighting with his mom. And he takes a shower here every morning. So where the hell is he? Like, he's not here. And then 8, 9 o'clock, he finally rolled in and they're like, where the hell were you? And he's like, it's just something I do. And they're like, okay, where were you? Like, we know you, we're your only friends. Like, where were you? And he's like, this thing. And they're like, come on, spill it. Where were you? And he's like, well, I save a little bit of money of every single one of my paychecks from door-to-door sales so that on Thanksgiving I could buy family some food who need it, and then I take it to them. And he's like, people who really need the help. And all his friends start laughing. And he goes, what's so funny? And they're like, you're homeless. You need help. And he's like, no, like, I'm a guy. Like, I'm fine. Like, a family who needs help. Like, that's who I take it to. And they all laughed. And they're like, you're a weird dude, man. Like, you're living in your car and you barely afford food, but you're saving money to give food to other people. That's interesting. It's different. And now in the last few years, he made a pledge to feed 1 billion people. And so I think he's already donated like 700 million meals over the last few years. And so it's a big gap. So that's kind of interwoven into both of my parents. So I picked up a lot of that from them. And I have a very similar nature of I like caring for people. I asked Seth Godin if he's a marketer. Anyone who knows marketing, he's iconic in the marketing space. Like, he helped launch Victoria's Secret Pink and like all kinds of big brands. He wrote some amazing books on marketing and really understands it. He blogs daily. I asked him one time, I was like, hey, I'm trying to find my purple cow. And he laughed. And he said, well, you're interesting. Like, you're in the same industry as your father. Your father's the goat of the industry. He's the dominant force of this industry. So you trying to find your purple cow of what makes you different is going to be fascinating. And he said, I've observed you. I've watched your stuff. I've listened to your interviews. I've paid attention to what you do. And he said, if you want to know what makes you different, in my opinion, it's the fact that you really care. And I laughed. I'm like, 1, that's true. 2, how the hell do you write that on a website? Like, I mean, he gave me the greatest marketing slogan that I still can't figure out how to use. Because if you went to my website and it's like, welcome to JarekRobbins.com, what makes me different is I care. Instantly, I'd be like, I don't trust that shit. Why would you have to write it? Caring is something you show me, not something you tell me. And so I was like, thanks a lot, Seth. I got the greatest unused marketing advice. But the dude's brilliant. And I think he nailed it. It is what makes me different. I to this day still don't know how to print that on a card or anything.
It's up in the one you have now with the learn it, live it, give it. That's the most caring thing ever, man, is to be able to learn all you have and take time to share with people like myself who just really are just inspired by your journey and the ability that you do take on a lot of responsibility to be where you are. And it got there because you worked your ass off.
Yeah. Yeah. And part of that is, preparing for the opportunity where you get to serve.
Love
I
it.
spent the last 8 years preparing, learning, practicing, I would say apprenticing with a business mentor who's taught me what took him 40 plus years of buying and selling businesses and building companies to learn. And he's downloaded into me everything he learned for, over 4 decades. And after 8 years of practice, study, and refinement, I got to a place where you can hand me a business and I'm like, "Ooh, watch this." I know which levers to pull, I know which buttons to push and which knobs to twist, and I know exactly what happens on the other side. And so I know how to make those dynamic shifts, grow a company by 74% a year. And when I first learned it, I learned it from him. So I studied with him, went to courses, went to events, listened to his audios, read the books, listened to the programs. Like I studied it, I learned it, I lived it. I took the material, applied it in one of our businesses, and grew it by 143% over 3 years. And then I was making more profit in a month than I used to make in a year. And so I lived it where I'm like, ooh, I learned it, I lived it. And then I started a business program during the pandemic in 2020 where I saw a lot of small business owners just getting devastated. And I said, okay, I'm going to put up something for a nominal fee, something reasonable, a couple $100 a month. And I'm going to show as many of them as I can how to navigate this.
Wow.
And I did. I put it up and we had, I don't know, 20, 30 something businesses all join. And every week I met with them and I showed them very specific things to do. And we helped save over, I think, 12 businesses. We helped them navigate where it looked like they were going out of business. And we made a couple adjustments so that they stood in business. And then a few of those businesses, and just so you know, we helped them save a mid-market firm saved over 300,000 euros. We helped a gym in Texas save over 54,000 for the year. We helped other companies save somewhere between that 54 or 300,000 a year mark. We just helped them save all the money. And then we helped them turn on revenue sources. We helped a lady she was a cake maker in Europe, very famous cake maker, been making cakes for over 20 something years. And she makes wedding cakes, birthday cakes, event cakes, like those big, fancy, amazing cakes.
Right.
And I mean, how many events were going on during COVID? The answer was none. No events. She moved out to the countryside. She was on the government stipend and she was like, but I don't know how to make money. So I sat with her and I said, okay, let's just chat real quick. I said, I'm going to say something crazy and you're going to think it's crazy until it clicks. And then you're going to think I'm a genius in about a month, but let's just talk. So we started talking and I said, here's a crazy idea. How many people have ever bought a cake from you ever in the lifetime of your cake making? She's like, I don't know, thousands. I said, okay, let's just say a few thousand. How much money would you be making if all of those people were buying one cake a month from you every month? And she smiled. She said, if I was making that much money, I'd own the BBC. I said, okay. I said, there's the crazy thought. How do we get everyone who's ever bought a cake from you to continue to buy a cake from you from now on forever? And she's like, but you don't understand the types of cakes I make. They're not going to buy a 5,000 pound or $12,000 cake once a month. And I said, no, but I bet they'll buy a slice of it. And she says, what do you mean? And I said, how many people do you know that if you said, hey, here's for your wedding cake, and I'm going to send you a slice of your wedding cake every month to celebrate your love from now until the rest of your life, so that every month you get a little reminder of how much you love each other. How many couples do you think would pay for that? Or how many family members would happily pay for it so that the couple gets it every month as a reminder of their love?
Wow.
And her head exploded.
Yes.
I have a random cake named after me somewhere in the UK. She mailed me one. She's like, this is the Jairek. I'm like, don't call it that. No one's going to buy it. It's a weird name for a cake. She's like, no, but I wanted to honor you. I'm like, I'm so appreciative. Just call it something else. But she called it a Jairek cake, and it exists somewhere in the UK. And we helped that lady turn on an entire new arm of her business during the pandemic, which allowed her to start making consistent revenue again when her revenue was completely cut off. And even better, she emailed me a while ago and she says, instead of moving back to the chaotic life in the city, I've decided to stay in the country and just have my subscription business open. And now I get to do what I love, which is bake all day and just mail out my custom cakes to all my subscribers all over the world.
Wow.
I was like, good for you. So she lives in the country. It sounds like a fairy tale from a children's book. She lives in the country, baking cake all day, mailing it all around the world to all the people who subscribe to her beautiful and amazing cakes.
She loves it.
That's right. And so, like I said, I spent 8 years studying with a mentor, figuring out how to make a few minor adjustments that once made have lasting positive return on investment in a business. And so I learned it from him. I lived it in my own, and we've been able to successfully give it or teach it to other people so they too can have the results in their business.
Perfect. Who was the mentor?
Keith Cunningham.
Keith Cunningham. Okay.
Keith Cunningham. He's still alive. He's getting close to starting to wrap up. I highly recommend anyone who can go work with him. He's 70. He said he's got about 5 to 7 years left, and then he's going to stop. So I highly recommend to go work with him as fast as humanly possible if you have the chance.
Excellent.
And he's expensive. I pay $40,000 a year to talk with him 3 times a year.
Wow.
But he's helped me make millions.
Right.
So I think it's worth it.
I love that you still, like, even if there is millions that have been made, I love that you can still boil it down to something that we can all accomplish right now. Like something about the world we live in, something about the influences that are kind of, given to us in either the most like masking way to where like you pay more to get like a little bit more of the secret people think, or either it's just in this way that people don't understand because they're overwhelmed because there's so many resources these days. I love that you still make an action step that's available for you right now, no matter how many resources you have.
Yeah. Action step. Go help someone. Go feed someone. Go influence yourself to make a healthy choice today. Go influence your family to make a healthier choice today.
Love that. We've talked about it many a times on my podcast as well as the radio show, and we like to kind of just boil things down. I don't ever like to feel like I'm talking at someone, but it's a radio show and we don't get much feedback. So when I am getting the feedback, it's exciting to see when we do comparisons of like joy versus happiness, or when we do something like beware of the curse of comparison and find your own fulfillment inside you. Those things truly help people see that they are capable right now.
Totally.
So if somebody was watching this and they were to see somebody such as yourself and their self, what do you think is the disconnect besides the work when it comes to the individual and wanting to aspire to achieve all that you have or impact all the lives, all that anyone of your professionalism has?
Start with one. Just start with one. Start with the person you can. My little cousin told me, she's like, one of my favorite things we used to do when we were in school together was I'd pick her up and say, you want to go feed people? She'd go, yeah. I go, okay, get in the car. I put her in the back seat. I'd get in the front seat. We'd swing by Costco, buy a ton of food, sandwiches, chips, drinks, all this stuff. We'd get Ziploc bags and she would help compile them into snack bags. And we'd drive around San Diego and just hand them out to random people we could find that looked hungry. I didn't care if they're homeless or not. I just looked for someone that looked hungry. Like you could be walking down the street perfectly fine. I'd be like, they look hungry though. And we pull over and be like, you want some food? They'd be like, I'm okay, bro. I'm like, no, seriously. Like we got snack packs. We're handing out to homeless people, but you looked hungry, bro. So I just thought I'd drop one off for you. And every now and then someone's like, actually, yeah, I am kind of freaking starving. We're like, great, have one. They're like, thanks, dude. They just drive away.
That's it.
But that's local influence.
You didn't like force a communication on it though. Like there's so many times in my life where I've had to like kind of like come down from my own ego because I've seen obviously that your proximity is where a lot of your success comes from. But man, I have so many connections every day, and I'm just thankful to have the conversation. And I'm not like, hey, let me keep up with you. Let me give you my information. Here's my card. Like I've never been that guy. So it's very cool to hear that you're the same way. You're like, yeah, here's your sandwich. Have a great day. Take care.
Yeah. I observed something where a young woman was sharing her story with me, and you could tell it was hitting a very vulnerable moment. Her lips started quivering. She looked like she was about to cry. And as she was talking, she said, I've tried everything. And there was a guy standing next to me who's a coach. And he's like, "Oh, I could tell you where you screwed up." And he said, "The word try. That's where you screwed up. You tried. There's no such thing as try. You either do or you don't do." I was like, "Okay, Yoda, shut up and listen. She's trying to share something important."
I love that.
And so often people get excited to try to drop their knowledge, and they're missing out on listening. Listening is when you release all the things you want to say back and you just experience what the person is sharing. Oftentimes, what people are craving in society at this moment is just to be seen, understood, and appreciated. Notice I didn't say to be told what to do by someone else who clearly knows how to give them action items and requests. They want to be seen, understood, and appreciated. That's a huge, if you want to influence the people around you, practice being present for them. That's all. Just go ask them, "Tell me about your day." Someone just posted something the other day. She's super famous, really well known. And she posted something that popped up in my feed, and it was just saying, "I'm having a rough day and it's an uphill battle and it's so challenging, it's so struggling and blah, 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 blah." And all I wrote back is really simple. "You good?" Question mark. And then she unloaded a big old story. "I'm going through this and no one supports me and blah, 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 blah." And she's like, "Well, maybe someday you and I can chat." The only reason I'm saying blah, 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 blah is because it's her details and I don't want to share those.
Totally. Yeah. I knew you didn't
And
think.
I said, "Sure. Have you ever considered this?" And she goes, "Yeah, maybe I'll check it out." I said, "No problem. You have tons of life experience. You probably already know what to do. But if you ever need support, let me know." She wrote back, "I want to know more about you. It seems like this is what you do for business, huh?" And I said, "It is. It's kind of a business, but it's more of a passion. I enjoy helping people, and this is just a way I can get paid to help people. And so I figure it's the best of both worlds. I call it for purpose. If you want to look for a way that you can get paid in this area, some people have a problem with this. I don't necessarily. But if you think about it, I have a friend who showed me something like this. He came out of Bain Consulting, which Bain Consulting is very, very clear about the bottom line and how to drive revenue and make money. But he had a big old heart for the nonprofit world where he wanted to help people. And so he had the heart of a nonprofit, but the brains of a for-profit. And he says, "I believe these things don't have to be separate. I think if we overlap it, all of a sudden there's an enterprise called For Purpose." And a for-purpose enterprise is something that makes a mountain of money and then takes that money and reinvests it into people and projects that matter. And I went, "Ooh, tell me more. Why, how does this come together? Why did you choose this path? Why didn't you just do a nonprofit? Because those are better, right?" He said, "No, nonprofits, I have to spend all my time begging people to give me money so I can go help." He said, "For purpose, I put a business engine on this thing. I go make a ridiculous amount of money, and then I help. And I help by choice. I help on my own free will, and I help whenever I want to, as often as I want to." And I went, "Ooh, you just twisted something in my head that never really computed." There's a woman who wrote a book called The Soul of Money. And when I first read the title, I was like, "Really? Like, okay, this is going to be interesting." And then I read it and found out she's one of the number one fundraisers in the world for nonprofits. And the book describes that the intention behind why the money is given matters. Because if it's given with the wrong intention, it'll never do the work it's needed to do. And I went, "Ooh, that's really interesting. Tell me more." And as I kept reading, she gave an example. She said, "I remember I was fundraising for a charity. Her name's Lynn Twish. So I was fundraising for a charity. I went down and I gave a presentation, and I was granted a huge check by a major corporation in New York City. They invited me to fly to New York City to go up to the chairman's office in the big, giant, amazing building." She's like, "I got in the building, took an elevator up, switched elevators, took another elevator up, then finally got to the chairman's office, was invited to the secretary, and then eventually called into the office." She said, I wore my best silk dress. I created the most amazing presentation so I could show them exactly where their money's going to be used. And I was so proud and excited to be there. As I got there, I was invited in. He said, okay, he can see you now. As I walked in the office, I saw the back of a gentleman looking out the window on the phone, talking away. As I came to the desk, he looked over and he said, oh, you're the lady from the nonprofit? Yeah, hold on one second. Came over, he goes, here's the check. We're so thrilled. Thank you for doing the good work. Anything else? No? Okay, thank you. Anyways, yeah, I went back to the phone. She walked out disappointed.
Yeah.
She asked the question, why is this person giving me the money? She didn't know, but she walked out. Later that night, she had a church presentation in one of the boroughs. It was a rough part of town. She came, hundreds of people showed up, and it was a church that it was raining, and there was drops coming through the ceiling, and they had buckets catching the drops. And at the end of the presentation, everyone stood up and came to the middle, and one by one came forward and kind of donated some cash, some 5, 20s, 100s, whatever. They donated a check, stuff they could. One lady came up. It was this large African-American lady, and she reached into her purse and pulled out a wad of money. And she said in the book, she said, the lady held it up and said, I washed a white woman's clothes all week to earn this, but I know you're going to do more with this than I can. So I'm going to give it to you. Go do good work. She said she walked out of that church in tears. She sat in the taxi on the way back to her hotel. She got to a hotel, and she placed the wad of cash on one side of the table and the giant check on the other side of the table. And she asked, what is the intention that comes with both of these donations? What she heard, someone told me, prayer is when we talk to God, meditation is when we listen. When she listened, she heard one person is trying to actually make a positive impact in the world. The other person is trying to write off their bad deeds by giving a big check to make themselves look good. And she says, you know what? Intention matters. I think the money coming with the right reasons will do way more than the money coming for the wrong reasons. She tore up the check. The nonprofit side of me is like, are you crazy? When someone gives money, you put that money to good work and you go help people.
Yes.
When I kept reading the book, it kind of clicked. The intention behind the money matters.
Absolutely.
And I said, I believe in this lady. And as I read the book, I found out she was one of the top fundraisers on earth for nonprofits. And she will not take money from people with the wrong intentions. And she believes the reason that so much money funnels through her is because she only allows money to come through with the right intentions.
I love that you shared that. We did, I like to put on my radio show the producer on like the air with me. And it was so cool because I just would pray. I'd be like, God, just let this impact one person. Like you said, start with one. And it literally was so cool that immediate gratification came through him being able to partner with me on a show on the third week, usually of every single month. But it's just amazing to me that when you share stories like that, you have the true people of great character who are able to see that no matter where the money comes from, it's got to be with good intentions. It's got to be with people that, actually are great influences to the community and want to be able to actually make a difference. Why do you feel, and I know you've probably been asked this before, and this is a little bit of me wondering too, and my curiosity, why do you feel that the media and all the people that we might see who we don't know anything about, insight to their life and whatnot, why do you feel that it's depicted oftentimes that people have to be greedy to accumulate a lot of wealth, or people have to be, not open to ideas? Like, it's the exact opposite when you actually meet with people that take the time to tell you that they're very humble, they're very grateful, like they love you. Like, where do you think that disconnect comes from?
So to accumulate money, you have to value money. And this is a light bulb moment for 90% of people. I'll draw it for you. So if you looked in your account and you had two things. You had a stack of money, right, in the account, and then outside you had things and stuff. Is the writing backward?
It's actually completely upright. I can see it. Excellent.
Okay, I'm just my screen showing it in verse, so I just want to make sure it's showing it the right way on your side.
It's awesome, man. Thank you.
Okay, so you have money in your account, and then there's things and stuff out in the world, right? And if you value, so if we put the scale where you value things and stuff up here, and the scale looks like this, right? If that's how the scale looks, then you value money less and things and stuff more, which means you're willing to give away the money to get the things and stuff. If we shift it and someone tells me, no, I value the money more than I value the things and stuff. So the money's up here, scale comes down here like this, and the scale's like that. That means they're not willing to give up the money to get the things and stuff, which means they're going to have more money. So if I were to put the scale, and I'll give you the quick test, if I were to put the scale here, we're going to do a couple examples just so people can see it, is which one do you think Warren Buffett cares about more? And I'll say it a different way. Which one does he value more? Does he value buying things and stuff, or does he value making and having more money?
Making and having more money.
That's right. Warren Buffett. So we're going to put WB over here. Warren Buffett values making and having more money more than he values buying stuff. Because Warren Buffett has a ridiculous amount of money and at any point could say, hey, I'm going to trade $100 million for a yacht. He could do that. He could say, I'm going to trade $1 billion and go buy Nike or some other company. At any point, he could trade the money for the things and stuff, but he chooses not to. Now, I'm going to use an old example. P. Diddy and Notorious B.I.G. in the movie Hypnotize. Diddy's over here back then, right?
Right.
Diddy valued things and stuff more than the money. How do I know that? Because in the video, they had yachts and helicopters and houses and cars. They valued all those things more than the money. So they quickly gave all the money to go get the things and stuff and had lots of it. Now, if you look at Diddy, where is he at? Diddy's way over here. He values the money way more than the stuff. But he started on the things and stuff side. And so when I ask, why do some people have a lot of money and other people don't? Usually the truth is the person hasn't learned how to value money more than the things and stuff.
Makes total sense.
It's really simple when it clicks.
It
goes, ooh, I could either go buy a new watch or I could keep the money.
Right.
Ooh, I could fly somewhere on a plane, right? Don't fly on this plane. It looks dangerous. I could fly somewhere on a plane or I could keep the money. Ooh, I could buy a new house or I could keep the money. Unless the house cash flows, then I'm actually buying something that makes more money.
Right.
So you're either buying things and stuff, or my mentor calls it doodads, or pimping your wagon, spending money on stuff that doesn't make money, or you value money and you spend money on stuff that makes more of it. Now, then people hit me with, all you care about money. And I said, no, I don't. I care about for purpose. I care about making mountains of money so that I can go give it away to the people and projects that matter at whatever time I feel necessary. If I wanted to write a $25,000 check today to someone I care about to help them, I could. The only reason is because I figured out that I need to value this less than I value this.
I can see where that would click. 90%. Yes, 100%. I get that.
And because I chose to value this and get it to work for me and build more, then I can choose to do this whenever I feel like it. And for me, my superpower is caring. So I tend to feel like it a lot.
Right.
Therefore, I do it a lot. That's how I would reverse engineer it.
I knew we had a lot in common, man. I say all the time, my superpower is my vulnerability. So I claim to have a superpower as well.
Yeah, I love it. I got to jump. I showed you my calendar right before. A person just popped in the room twice and then messaged me and said, "Where are you?"
And thank you, honestly, for even just.
You're welcome.
I really appreciate it. And I know anyone that can get some value from this, even if it's, just myself and it's kept with me, I'd love to be able to create some micro content out of it. But I really enjoyed just this amount of time you've given to just pour yourself out into like the people that could be listening to this and just me in general.
Totally. Happy to share.
Yeah,
Happy to
let's
share.
talking more. I'm still connecting with you on Instagram. Maybe you'll come out to the Inland Coast one day and I can get you in the radio station as well.
I love it. I love it.
Awesome. Cool, man. Thank you again. I'll be in touch.
Thank you, sir.
Take care, man.